All right, another amazing guest on the Low Carb Athlete podcast to help educate you on the smartest way to fuel, train, and perform as a low carb athlete, as there's a lot of information out there on keto and carbs and fasting, and we tend to do everything too much as the type A, AAA athlete. So I have Luis Villaseñor from LMNT and Ketogains founder. So I'm so happy to have you on the show to kind of dive in your thoughts on all these topics.
Thank you, Debbie, for having me. I'm always eager to talk a little bit about keto, fasting, etc., because it's a little bit of my passion project to, teach or educate people in these topics.
So talk about what you do with Ketogains, kind of what led you to that area. You're a co-founder of multiple companies. I'll have all that in the show notes, but what's your kind of your why, your passion, purpose? You just said that, but why are you doing all this stuff? Constant research and sharing info.
So basically this all started when I was about 17 and a little bit earlier, but I'll just jump to the most important part. I was studying a bachelor's degree in business administration and marketing here in Mexico. And at that time, I was, I'd say, in a low point of my life. I was overweight when I was a kid. I then became a little bit fit, but I was still on the chubby side. In between the pressure of being a high functioning student, and then also a little bit of bad love relationships and stuff, stuff, the usual. I ended up anorexic. So I dropped down to about 48 kilos at the time. Currently, I'm 76. And I basically stopped doing training, exercising, etc., because I didn't have any energy. My life was eat a little bit and then go to sleep and then study and, repeat it. And that was the lowest point for me, which I thankfully stopped by myself and said, hey, what I'm doing is wrong, is going to kill me. And I started reading and researching on how to get lean in a way or build muscle without having to go to the traditional approach of, bulking, eating a lot of carbs, etc. And I started reading on the university library. And then I also got into classes on nutrition with some friends that were majoring and studying for that. And I basically started learning by myself a lot of these things. Then eventually I stumbled upon the ketogenic diet just by mere chance. And the thing is that I found a way where I could slowly and gradually gain my strength back without having these, you mentioned a while before, OCD, right? A lot of people are all or nothing. And I found that using a low carb approach helped me control cravings and be more in tune with what I ate. I could eat exactly the adequate portions of what I needed to eat versus getting into these binge eating episodes and so on and so forth. So I started studying that for myself, started to get results. A lot of people started asking me what I do, how I do it, etc. And I just started to share information. And I'm what I call a nerd at heart. Just again, a little bit of an anecdote, but I used to be the kid at school that read a lot of comics and also carried with me an Encyclopedia Britannica and read that for kicks. So this was, again, I'm 44. So imagine that almost 35 years ago, we didn't have the internet. You didn't have tablets or all the information in your phone. If I wanted to learn something, I had to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and things like that. And I actually remember just sitting, reading, book after book, tome after tome, and trying to learn. That was in a way my window to the world, right?
Yeah, I think that's why I always love to start the show with my guests as what's your why, because we all have different backgrounds, but similar, different things that were kind of like, oh my gosh, I need to change something now, or it's going to lead to more health imbalances, and really learning how to share our story to help other people. Like I shared, my adrenal exhaustion back in 2013, going from, 15 Ironmans to not being able to do one ever again, which is probably a smart thing. But that I got broken and I burned myself out in all areas of life, that I think we all share similar passions to help other people avoid going through that experience. But with Ketogains, I think, I always come across your blog when I'm looking up stuff. As I said, I work for Ben Greenfield part-time coaching clients, and I work for my own self, teaching the holistic method, and really coaching athletes is my kind of my niche, because that's my background. My area of love is doing triathlons and, well, training. I don't race, but lifting weights and getting stronger. And I just turned 50 and trying to live my best life, my second half of my life, and sharing my journey with others to hopefully inspire them to change and do more. But the focus, I think, we'll get into today is when you should do a little bit more carbs. All these different great, amazing people out there are sharing, 50 carbs a day, get into nutritional ketosis, get in, get out 1 day a week, maybe do a 24-hour fast once a week, 3-day fast once a quarter or once a month. And so I find a lot of people are hearing all this information, but then how do we cater it to the athlete? Someone that's working out every day, they're very active. Maybe they work out twice a day and they are causing themselves more harm than good, doing too low of carb, doing too much keto, doing too much of everything, too much fasting, and teaching us like when we should start being more intuitive eating, the fueling and the training for our sport to figure out, okay, that's going to cause me more thyroid imbalances and throw my hormones into the garbage and all these different things. So what led you to kind of connect the dots and find out like, oh, carbs, fasting, keto, and kind of put it together?
So first, I think that the key word and that a lot of people miss is the magic word, which is called context, right? Depending on where you are and what your goals are, you're going to have to strive for one way or another. People want to ride all the horses all the time. Like you said, fasting for 24 hours or 72, because we want autophagy. We want optimal health. We want to be the best performers. And we have to understand that this is very much like a Venn diagram. And this is how I teach it to all my clients. You have health, you have optimal performance, you have optimal fat loss. The more you veer toward one of the 3 points, the more you're going to stray away from the others. You cannot have all of them, at the highest ratio. If you want optimal health, of course, you're not going to be, walking with ripped abs and bulging muscles. And probably you're not going to be performing at best as you can, because everything has a cost. Or if you want to perform your best at certain sports, maybe you should not be as lean as you want to be. And probably that is going to take a little bit of detriment in your health. Why? Injuries, sport injuries, or like you said, adrenal fatigue, etc. Okay, you had a goal, you probably won a competition, but then you have to recover and recoup, right? Or on the other hand, you want optimal fat loss. The classic example, bodybuilders, they look at their best, but they are at their worst in levels of energy and health. It's just for a picture, and that's it. So what I try to teach my clients is very much, let's find this balance where you feel great, you perform good enough. Of course, if you're in your off season or you're not a competitive athlete, right? And you don't have to be like those Instagram models where you have, veiny abs all day. That's for most people not sustainable. And then you try to stay there all the time. And I tell my clients, when your normal life starts to suffer, like not wanting to go out to dinner because you're not going to be able to control the food you eat, or not hanging out with friends, or you're angry all the time, then why are you doing all of this for? It's not worth living like that. Again, maybe you're competing, you want to take a photo shoot, etc. Okay, that's a good goal. Let's work towards that for a while. Depending, of course, if your stress and your health is okay. If not, let's not even go there. And then you finish that, and we have, a little bit of a layoff time where you recover health and everything else.
Yeah. So a funny thing is, I have one of our VIP clients that I coach full-time. We're going to create a goal day, like we're performing for a movie. So I started looking at celebrity workouts when they're getting ready for like the Avengers or the Marvel, any of the Marvel movies. And I was reading or watching all these YouTube videos on how celebrities train to get like that. And they even say it's not sustainable. They're doing 2 days, they're cutting down their carbs, they're, probably not drinking, they're sleeping a ton, and they're doing all this, but it's like doing that as a jumpstart program and maybe get that for 30 days, but how do you do this ongoing for daily life? And like you said, not have to say, no, I can't do this. I can't go out with my friends. I can't eat at a restaurant. It's like, okay, one of my 8 elements of the holistic method that I coach my clients on is happiness, play, laughter. And I find as we're so driven, ambitious, high performing individuals that we tend to forget that element of, is this working for me in all areas of life? Am I still thriving every day and smiling and having fun? Or am I, pushing myself into the hole and probably like what I did, I was so serious all the time, training and racing at a high level that you lose that joy of life. And that we have to remember that, like, what's the purpose here of what you're doing? Is it working?
Totally. I also, with my high performing clients, what I tell them and I explain to them is, if you want to be a race car, you're going to have a short life.
Yeah.
Like a Formula, like those are, Formula One cars. What happens with them? They need to change their tires every 10 minutes. They overheat. They need to change the whole motor. So by the time the race is over, probably they're going to have to change, in most cases, at least 50% of the parts. Yeah, you probably won the race, but at the cost of what? Mm-hmm. Or would you rather be, especially with older people, like a vintage car that has perfect parts, functions perfectly, even if it's probably the model of a 9020? Yeah. It really depends, of course, where you are right now in your life. Maybe you're young. Okay, you are not thinking about all of that stuff. But like you said, you're in your 50s. I'm in my mid 40s. It's not the same.
I'm not in my 50s. I just turned 50. So don't jump up a few years.
Okay, well, you're just reached that, like you said, middle of the life, right? Yeah. But okay, we're very much in this state where I myself have I train a little bit with less intensity and use different training methods, just because I get injured more easily. It's just something that happens, and I don't want to be off training for 3 months because I did something silly. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just take it a little bit easier, and I'm probably going to be maintaining at this rate of my life. I'm more interested in maintaining an overall healthy life rather than just chasing PRs just for the sake of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an important part. So that kind of leads me out. We'll get to the questions here because I could talk to you for hours, but the top 3 tips to maintaining healthy lifestyle. Everyone wants to burn fat and get stronger, like get lean and strong, and especially, this beginning of the year. What are your top 3? Then I want to dive into your fasting info.
So this is something that I myself either learned from time to time, and also now reading research and some other recommendations from various trainers that are focused on body composition. It seems that we all tend to agree. So one is focus on eating protein first, a good source of protein. Mm-hmm. So always make protein your priority. Second is stay active as much as you can. And again, all of these recommendations are aligned with a third one, which is create sustainable and healthy habits. When you diet, when you eat certain things, when you exercise, you can have all, great intent and wishes and everything else. But if you don't make it and have it, you don't make it sustainable for yourself, it all just, again, becomes a wish, right? Mm-hmm. It's best to train 3 days per week for 20 years versus just, thinking I'm going to train for 5 days for the next 2 weeks, and you train and you crash and burn, right? Every time, for example, it's another anecdote. I see at least once a year, friends from high school. They look at me, and again, I may not be, the best example, but it's very much like one scene from a movie I saw with Chris Rock, I think, and The Rock actually, and they were childhood friends. One was overweight, which was my case, and the other was the athlete. They see themselves as a 20 years and, hey, how did you got to be this big and lean? It's like, oh yeah, it's very easy. I train for 1 hour. That's all you do? Yeah, for the last 20 years, basically. And that's very much what people, like my friends, ask me, hey, how do you maintain that? Just show to the gym, but I've done it for the last 25 years, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, but I couldn't do it or whatever. There's always an excuse. Hey, you don't have to go every single day. Maybe 2 or 3 days is more than enough, but it's consistency, what actually matters. And the same happens with diet. How many people, they're going to start New Year's with the idea of, I'm going to start eating healthy. Hey, you don't have to eat healthy all the time, all your life, but it's just like the Pareto rule, right? 80% or 20%, as long as you're consistent with the most important things, you're going to get results. Eating off maybe once a week, it's not going to really do a big dent on your diet, as long as you are not perfect, you are good enough 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I say the same thing, is always working on what are you doing now for your performance gains that's going to enhance your aging process. Like, let's work on your future self. How do you want to be living your life and moving and feeling and thriving every day when you're 30 years, 40 years from now? And when I always say this on the show, but when I go to Europe traveling, when it was easier to go traveling Europe, I would just look at these people, that are retired doing these trips. Like, okay, I want to be able to walk everywhere and move and travel the world when I'm older. And I think a lot of people forget when they're competing, racing, or just training hard now, that they don't look at what's, their future self, what they're doing. Is it causing more damage than good, as we said. But anyway, so questions that I know our listeners want to know about, so I'll stop blabbing. I have lots of questions, and based on pretty much, we'll go through what you shared in your article and research links. And I know Ben Greenfield did a talk on this that I was diving into. Do you burn more fat during fasted exercise? Big question.
So there's a sort of misunderstanding on this. Mm-hmm. Depending on the training intensity, you're either going to be burning mostly carbs or fats, right? Low intensity training usually burns more fat. Actually, people, when they want to say, when they ask me, hey, how do I burn more fat? As long as you're not eating and you're watching Netflix, you're going to be burning mostly fat. The key, which is the difference in how you ask the question, is you're going to burn more fat or utilize more fat as an energy substrate. Yeah, depending on what type of exercise you do and what intensity on, or what you ate before during exercise. But that does not equal to actually losing body fat, right? So for example, if you're doing a low carb diet or a ketogenic diet, where most of your calories come from fat, you're actually going to be using mostly fat as fuel when you train, because you don't have any other substrate. What happens then, or if you want to lose fat in the end, and I know that I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this, it's how much energy you had ingested, because still energy balance still matters, even in a ketogenic diet or when you are fasting or not. Yes, it changes a little bit how we use energy substrates. A calorie may not be the same from one macronutrient to the other. And there are ways to sort of make calories work in your favor. But the idea that you have to train fasted for optimal fat loss is a little bit misunderstood in a way.
So for the men versus female athlete too, because a lot of the studies, of course, are done on men, they're easier to test or just do a research study on, because women especially have hormone changes during the month. They're still premenopausal, but I think that gets confusing too. Like, so many people are doing these fasted workouts. And I know Ben Greenfield suggests do a fasted exercise in the morning, but that's like an easy walk. It's a low heart rate. It's mobility. It's going for easy swim or easy bike ride. And then if you are a female doing a harder workout, you might feel better, burn more fat if you're eating something before, or like putting MCT oil and collagen into coffee or tea, versus men I've read might do better eating afterwards So it always goes to what type of exercise you're doing. Am I doing a fasted exercise with my heart rate down, like the max aerobic function heart rate? We talk about maffetone, or is it, a HIIT training type of muscle glycogen depletion type of workout? So there's caveats there. And if you're lean female, that was the study that I've read is based on lean females. So it's really hard. I would say it's N equals 1, but what have you found the benefits for fasted training, and what type of exercise is best to do it fasted versus when you should have something and what should we eat? We'll get into it.
And actually, now that you mentioned a little bit of differences for strength training, which is the area I specialize on, women tend to use better and more fatty acids versus males. So a higher fat diet, I'm not saying super fat, super high fat, but to a point, higher fat is more beneficial for women who are into strength training than just using carbs.
So you mean beforehand or just general, their overall
general
diets, keto more?
The general diet. And again, we're gonna, when I speak of strength training, it's mostly bodybuilding, a little bit powerlifting style workouts, which is the main majority of what my clients do. But yeah, they perform better and feel better. It's a combination, which we will talk, I assume, a little bit later, of protein and fats, right? Yeah. But again, I, for the most part, do not recommend, with a small caveat, fasted training. And just for one reason, there are various reasons, but one thing that, again, people read a study and they think that it applies perfectly to them. A lot of the general fitness recommendations, a lot of them, especially for body recomposition, come from research or anecdotes done by bodybuilders. So for example, the idea behind doing fasted cardio to optimize fat loss. Yeah, that's a trick and a strategy that a lot of bodybuilders use. But you have to understand that that is done because first they have their diet already optimized. They are already at very low levels of body fat. And so they really cannot lower their calories any longer without detriment to their health. You're not going to get enough nutrients. You're not going to get enough macronutrients, etc. So very much the only way to increase caloric expenditure, to lower even more your body fat, is by doing training. And then, yes, there are some studies that show that fasted training, because of the fat usage, it's going to probably even enhance some areas of fat burning, especially when we're talking about what some people call stubborn body fat, right? Now, people see this information or read this information and they think that it applies to them. And I'm saying, for example, let's say a female client that is nearly 40% body fat, or a male client at 35% body fat. So I'm talking borderline obese. These people, they want to go and go all in on all of these tricks, doing cardio, fasted cardio, starving themselves to death. Hey, no, what you need to do is just start with the basics. And the basics are change your diet. Let's move a little bit more. Let's optimize your training and everything you do, rather than going all in. This is not the, this is not a test. This is not, you have to make this on something that you enjoy for a part, and it's going to be sustainable. This is not The Biggest Loser, right? So there's really, I know that people want fast results, but fast results, again, only make you crash and burn.
Yeah. So the downsides of fasted training would be, what have you found? I know low thyroid panels, when people look at a full thyroid panel, that's lower hormone, cortisol, stuff like that. What have you realized or found?
There are again, there are a lot of things. There are some benefits and there are some negatives. So it's not that everything is bad or everything is good.
Yeah.
So you have to make a choice, again, depending on where you are. For the most part, a lot of people think, or they actually report, they feel well by training fasted. And I tend to agree with that. There was a point in my life where I did an experiment for about a year and a half, where I did OMAD, 1 meal per day. I trained fasted and then I ate. I actually have numbers and recorded everything because I'm very meticulous with that. This was a year where I actually didn't gain any muscle. and my lifts were very much stagnant. I didn't really increase my training prowess, nor really broke any PRs, nor nothing. I maintained a stable weight. I wasn't eating that much, actually. Very bland foods, about the same. So, and I was single at the time, so it was a very sustainable way for me to, just stay there. I didn't feel bad, but I also, again, I didn't perform better. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you feel right training faster, but this is more so like an evolutionary response. Your adrenaline is higher, probably of your cortisol as well. And what I found, and there are some studies that support the notion that adrenaline is higher, cortisol is higher. What this makes is very much your body sheds some nutrients to support the level of training you're having. And again, it's very much like when you are fasted that you feel euphoric in a way. Of course, you feel good because your body's in a way thinking. Remember that our body doesn't understand exercise as we do. For the body, exercise is either I'm fighting with a saber-tooth tiger, or I'm running to chase my food, or from trying to avoid becoming food, right? If you run, your body doesn't know that I'm running for fun. The body doesn't care about our physique or us gaining muscle. The body just understands certain stimulus and does something about it. So of course, again, what happens when you have your adrenaline high? You perform incredible tasks. There are, studies that show that, so moms lift a car to save their children and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. Having adrenaline high all the time and in a constant way may not be optimal. There's, again, the example of the crash and burn or the F1 race car. You're going to burn more easily. And then if you're training for building muscle, what happens is, because you have higher cortisol, higher adrenaline, and you don't have also the nutrients, you're not going to be optimizing. And then the key word is optimization. You're not going to be optimizing all this training that you're doing. Hey, I'm training, you're already waking up, you're already doing all the effort, might as well get the best results. And I know that some people say, no, but I'm still overweight, I want to lose fat. Yeah, well, remember that the optimal way to lose fat, especially over time, is having more lean mass. The more lean mass you have, the more metabolically flexible you become, because you can probably eat more carbs a little bit and they're going to affect you less. You have a bigger repository for amino acids. You have a higher metabolic rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So it would be a little bit silly to not want to build as much muscle as possible to a point and optimize the results that you're getting from training. Another way to see it is, imagine that someone tells you, hey, if you invest in this company or in whatever, you're going to get a 10% return. No, I just want to put my money in the bank and get a 4% return. Oh yeah, but inflation is a 6%. No, I'm okay with 4%. You're losing money if you just leave your money in the bank, because inflation. And inflation in this case means sarcopenia, especially after we are 40 years old. No matter what we do, our body starts to degrade. So you're not training and building muscle for the idea to build. More so, you are training and doing all of this, in most cases, just for the idea of maintaining what you already had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so a lot to unpack, but I think question going back a little bit was like bodybuilding, best to have something before, and we'll talk about that, versus like CrossFit, as you're working with Rob Wolf, if it's more, if a different food plan. And then if you're doing, say, a triathlete, endurance athlete, runner, they're going to go do cardio. When should you eat before and when should you do it fasted? I think is what everyone gets confused on. It's like what your sport you're doing, but when should you eat, and then breaking that up for male versus female. Have you found any, like, here's a basic template to start with if you're doing a bodybuilding, heavy, just strength training, maybe like 5-8 rep stuff versus CrossFit that's higher intensity versus endurance?
Well, like a good approach to start is just by consuming, like the biggest thing that I find with athletes of any kind is they don't want to train with a full stomach.
Yeah.
because it makes you feel slow. In some cases, it causes stomach upset, stomach distress, etc. So if you want to have solid food, in most cases, maybe 3 to 4 hours before, and that's perfectly fine for strength training, even CrossFit, etc. Maybe for marathons or other, sports that, running and long distance. Maybe in some cases it works, in some others it doesn't work as well. But for the general part, what we do with our athletes is probably we're gonna go a little bit, talk a little bit further on that. But what we call the Ketogains Pre-Workout Coffee, which is protein, a fast absorbing protein like a whey shake, a little bit of sodium. In this case, well, we suggest Element because it's already convenient and it mixes very well, especially a chocolate one with, any whey shake. You can maybe add collagen, or depending, especially if you have joint issues. Some studies, even though I'm not a super fan of just using collagen per se, there are some scenarios where it's actually beneficial. Like if you increase, well, just for example, in strength training, increases collagen synthesis. So if you give them the actual material, and because of the stimulus, you're gonna get better response or absorption from collagen for the sake of joints and tendons, which is the intent here. And coffee, I know that some people may like it or not, has beneficial compounds. It's not just the caffeine, which a lot of people tend to think, but a coffee by itself, it's compounds, polyphenols, etc. They work very well for strength training, for example, because they help recover glycogen a little bit faster, and has also protective benefits. So this is something that we've tried with various different sports. Again, my main type of training for me or most of my clients are either strength training in different variations, not just bodybuilding, either bodybuilding or powerlifting, a little bit of CrossFit, and also jiu-jitsu. So for these kinds of sports, the shake works very well, taken in between 30 to 60 minutes before, because you're going to absorb all of it. And it's something that you're going to find very much, again, in your bloodstream in between 30 to 40 minutes. And of course, I forgot one key ingredient also, a little bit of MCT. So each ingredient has its whys. So the protein, of course, you're going to be giving your body the building block. And usually you see that some people recommend carbs pre-training. In the sense of bodybuilding or strength training, carbs are suggested as to increase a little bit of insulin. So people tend to say that insulin is anabolic and you're going to build more muscle with the insulin. The actual fact is that carbs, along with protein, don't increase insulin more than protein by itself. So the carbs in this case, for the sake of increasing insulin and muscle protein synthesis, is redundant. You don't need the carbs for this, especially in the context of someone that's practicing a low carb or ketogenic diet. So it's just protein. Then the MCT. Why MCT? Not because keto. The MCT because it's a fast absorbing and readily usable source of energy, which you're going to be using like just when you're training, right? Then the coffee, for the effects that I mentioned, the polyphenols, etc., they work ergogenically for glycogen replenishment, recovery, etc. Again, if you don't like coffee or you have a caffeine intolerance, decaf works as well. If you don't like coffee, well, just omit the ingredient. Sodium, why? Because we know that hydration is super important. If you're dehydrated, you're going to perform worse, and it's best to front load the sodium. And then, of course, during the training, you're probably going to hydrate as well, but it's best to front load it. And very much that's the formula for the Ketogains pre-workout coffee. Again, why pre and not after? Yeah. In the case of protein, because a lot of bodybuilders or people just anecdotally ask me that question. It's like, oh, but they tell me to use the protein after. Yeah, after, get protein, but have a whole food meal. We suggest before basically for two things. What I mentioned before, the muscle protein synthesis. You want to synchronize the response from the training as close as possible with the actual material. And a whey shake is going to be digested in about 2 hours. The body can digest the velocity in a way that the body digests different types of protein, depends on how processed or the type of protein you ingest. So whey shake is basically the fastest protein that your body is going to absorb at the rate of about 10 grams per hour. So a typical workout, and you take it like 40 minutes before, you're gonna get the protein in your system or in your blood about when you're finishing the workout. So if you take like traditionally the shake after training, it's gonna get into your bloodstream at earliest maybe in 2 or 3 hours. So it's better to take it before. And then there's also a psychological aspect, which is in a way like a placebo effect. Lots of people report, I took my magic potion. It makes you more motivated to go to the gym in case because usually my clients take it when they're in the car, commuting to the gym. So there's no way that they're going to miss their training session because they already took the potion, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, that's how we call it, the magic potion. And it also, again, amps you up. It motivates you. It's like you took the coffee, it's warm, it tastes great. It's like you're ready to hit the gym. Yeah, and afterwards, just eat a whole, a nutrient dense whole food that's usually you're hungry after training. You want, something satiating and satisfying. You get your reward, which can be a big steak with lots of veggies.
Yeah. And shouldn't you wait? I've heard to wait 90 minutes post workout before you eat a solid meal. Is that different for strength training or the same as if you do?
What would be the reason for what?
That the growth hormone and testosterone are still elevated and you're insulin sensitive. So wait until I was thinking to wait till you're actually hungry, not.
Yeah.
So you can properly digest as well, because you can't eat if you're in sympathetic. So you wait till you're in parasympathetic and be able to.
Well, the thing is that that's a recommendation that I find a little bit redundant. And that's also comes up from a lot of bodybuilding circles where they suggested to avoid eating fat because of that, because your insulin is high and everything is high, it's going to be more feasible for you to store it. The actual thing is mostly no one eats outside, like just finishing your workout. It's not like I finished my last rep and you grab food and you eat it. No, while you take a bath, change, commute to your house, it's going to be those 69 minutes. So for a lot of clients, how I explain to this is nothing so too much out of nothing. Unless, of course, again, you're grabbing a chicken and eating immediately. Just wait 30 minutes, whatever. We don't know, because there are studies that say, like you mentioned some of the things you said. I've seen recent studies that don't show anything of detriment. So when you don't know exactly, and there's a what if scenario, just wait it out. Nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention too, I think a lot of people doing keto and doing fasted exercise, were usually the ones sticking to it, are overriding the feelings when they actually are hungry, need to eat. So when to break that fast, when to eat, but also that carbs are evil. People think like, if I eat a carb, I'm going to mess up my whole fat burning workout, and that they feel guilty if they eat something beforehand, because they keep being told fasted exercise, don't eat, being keto, that if I have a little something, it's going to screw me up. And I, feel like I just ate a plate of cookies.
No, like the strategic use of carbs in some cases is super interesting and something recommended. Again, depends, context, where you are. Mm-hmm. If you are, and this is something that happens especially to my CrossFit clients. And I'm not against CrossFit. I'm actually a certified coach. But again, context. If you are 40% over body fat as a female, you started CrossFit. And then you come, I need my carbs because I want to break PRs. It's like, wait. Your main focus right now should be fat loss at the expense of optimal performance. Because losing fat right now for you in the medium to long term is going to help you break those PRs with less effort, right? And then we can start adding a little bit of carbs or using other approaches. Now, again, the most important thing for fat loss is being consistent with the diet. So if you at this moment do want to compete at your level and you're finding that you're dragging, okay, let's add maybe 10, 15, 20 grams of carbs, of certain types of carbs. And probably this is not going to affect the results you have on fat loss as long as we are adhering to the other things in your diet. What I've seen is that some people use this excuse of they have to eat carbs, and the carbs they're eating is, okay, it's not maybe a potato or rice, or maybe even like some glucose pre-training, which has also its use. No, they're going to start eating, what are you eating? What are those Oreos for? I need them for my training. I don't think that's the way to go, right? Yeah. It's just, again, an excuse that some of us just use. But again, the strategic use of carbs, depending on the context, especially for high glycolytic workouts like soccer, CrossFit, especially if you're training maybe 2 a days, it's going to be a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I read too, is what Ben Greenfield suggested. If you're doing when to eat after workout would be for more endurance athletes. I think when you're doing a 2-day. So like I ran in the morning and I'm going to go to master swim at lunchtime. I probably shouldn't just keep fasting until 1 o'clock and then eat at 2. That's going to be impacting my health a lot more.
Let's remember that carbs, and like all of this, maybe our audience need a little bit of remembering. Carbs are very much on how I explain it. Like if we have an electric car, right, that still uses gasoline. Mm-hmm. So carbs are in a way what gives you, when you turn the car on, you turn the engine and usually the cars use gasoline to turn the engine on. And then if you go super fast, you're going to use also gasoline. But for long distances and just, trailing along, your body's going to, the car is going to be using electricity. The same happens with our body. You want explosive movements, you're going to need carbs. Mm-hmm. If you are just going to be doing some light training or even, again, bodybuilding, but it's at semi-low intensity or even at high intensity, if you are actually metabolically flexible or well suited to the diet, like in my case, you can perform very well on a high fat diet. But again, bodybuilding, I train probably 1 hour on average or a little bit more every day, or at least 5 days per week. But I one session and then I rest and I train the next day. When I'm training for a competition, when I'm training 2 a days, of course, I'm going to eat more and probably have some carbs before. Or if I want, I'm going to train more explosively, because otherwise I just drag along. I suck.
Well, that's what I always ask people when I feel like people unintentionally brag how long they could go without eating, and they could go for a 3-hour bike ride, or they could do this workout or that workout. But I always want to say, but could have you felt better? Could have you been stronger or faster and improved? Yeah, I can go for a long time not eating, but is that the best for me? And knowing that, I actually did a website for it, intuitive fueling for the athlete. I think we need to start, course correct as needed, pay attention to those red flags. Like I lifted heavy this morning and I had my coffee and some MCT oil and a little creamer in it. And I was a little hungry afterwards. I'm like, well, do I push through it and wait till, 10 a.m., 2 hours later, and just keep being hungry? Or when do you listen to your body, go, okay, I should probably eat a little something now because my body's telling me I need to eat. So I think we forget or don't know how to listen to hunger cues. And when does it become another eating disorder, right? It's like we get obsessive.
Well, our body usually used to have these signals, right? And I been recently using the example of my dog Benito. I have a Pomeranian, right? I put his dish full of meat. He's like a keto dog in a way, and he eats chicken, liver, beef. If he's not hungry, he won't touch it. Mm-hmm. If he's hungry, he eats it, and maybe he asks for more. But he knows how to listen to his body. So why cannot we? Like we used to, and some people are able to. It's just because of habits. We overrode that signal, right? Yeah. So like with my clients, what I do is depending on in what stage they are, like if you are probably overweight and you come from a high carb diet or a traditional style diet, a lot of those signals are overridden because we are attuned to eating so much fast food and crap food that you eat out of cravings, right? Or you, uh, in a way, are eating because of boredom or trying to fill out a certain void in your life at that moment. And again, it becomes a habit. Every time that you feel a little bit of stress, you resort to eating. Over time, and as you change your diet, you start to feeling to get that more in tune with actual hunger cues, or you can differentiate between hunger and thirst and some other stuff. And now I had to teach these persons on how to learn to listen to their body, like you were saying. And one trick that I found that works very well, you probably heard it, is if you're feeling hungry and you actually feel your stomach gurgling and empty, and you think, hey, I would, broccoli and eggs sounds incredible right now. Okay, probably go and eat it. But if what you're craving is a pizza and a Snickers bar, I don't think you're hungry. Wait probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes or drink something. And maybe most likely in most cases, it passes away, right? And even if you're fasting, and this is something that I say openly, I normally fast for 16, 18 hours, depending on the day and my schedule and so on and so forth. But if I have an appointment, a dinner party or whatever, I might as well, nothing bad happens if I break the fast for one day. I'm not going to be excommunicated from the fasting club, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the other is yesterday I made dinner for my wife and I was starving. I had dinner with her. Again, nothing happens if I break the fast for one day. Probably today I'm going to have breakfast maybe 2 hours later if I'm not hungry. If I'm hungry when if not, but I actually learned to really feel my hunger. And it's like, it's sad, but it's interesting to think of this. In this day and age, especially those of us that live in modern cities, most people have never, or some people have never actually felt real hunger. Unless, of course, you are in a very, bad condition where you are bad financially. But most people, despite not having a high income, have never actually felt real hunger. It's the first time in society that, speaking again, after World War II, where we throw more food away, right? And it's something to be really amazed and something to think about. We throw so much food and it's spoiled versus actually utilized and eaten.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, why intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding is so popular right now. And just finally people are realizing, the benefits once they get into it. But going back to, you said you fast 16, 18 hours. Does that mean water only, or do you have, what's your rules for yourself? Because you're active and you're strong, so your metabolism must be higher. Do you have anything?
It's either sparkling water or water, coffee, and element. So basically what I'm drinking right now is coffee with chocolate element and a little bit of water, of course.
Yeah, I bet the new chocolate mint would taste good in there too, right?
That's my current favorite. That's exactly what I'm having.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what, another podcast is, what you can eat, what breaks a fast. And I know we're going into that with our supplements, what breaks a fast, what doesn't, depending if it's gut health, fat loss, and longevity, and putting that together. So, all right. So another question is growth hormone, testosterone. I'm all about getting stronger, lifting more weight, especially it's winter time as we record this. So it's less cardio, bike rides and stuff like that I tend to do in the summer, and hiking, running. And now it's more like get to the gym and build muscle. So what do you find based on your research on improving the growth hormone and testosterone with fasting and exercise?
So in the case of growth hormone, there's also a lot of misunderstanding. And I would like for a lot of people that promote the fasting for the sake of the growth hormone as to build muscle, to go into some of the research and the purpose of growth hormone. And this is something that I am culprit as well of saying and promoting a few years ago. And again, I always try to ask myself, nowadays I'm a little bit more careful when I make a statement. Okay, this is what people are saying or what I've read. Let's go and find contrarian or evidence that says otherwise and see the hypothesis why, what's happening here, what's the underlying mechanism. And what I've found is that, yeah, fasted exercise increases growth hormone. But the most important factor or the most interesting part that I discovered is that growth hormone, despite its name, in adults doesn't increase growth. It actually is a mechanism in the case of fasting as to move nutrients to the part to where they are needed. Mostly in this case, people forget or don't know that amino acids, we don't have a repository for amino acids in our body. Basically, amino acids, let's remember that they are the smaller parts of protein, just like Lego blocks. And protein is not just for building muscle. It's basically for everything in our body. It builds hormones, enzymes, which are the key messengers in our body that tell our body to actually do stuff. Of course, skin, bones, your organs, and lastly, muscles. And in deference to carbs and fats, yeah, our body can store carbs in the liver and in our muscles, like glycogen. It can store fat in an almost unlimited amount as body fat, but we really don't have a place where our body stores amino acids. It can only assimilate them as contractile tissue, which is muscles. So if you're training fasted and your body needs amino acids, where is it going to get them from? From your own muscles. So let's understand this. We're training to build muscle, but we're not giving the body amino acids. It's like if you're building a house and then you didn't buy bricks, but you have the workers in the house and they go in, hey boss, where are the bricks? Why don't you take them from this wall behind me? Okay, well, great. They're gonna take the wall behind you. They're gonna use the bricks and they're gonna put another wall here, but then now you don't have the wall back here, right? So if you wanted to optimize, well, just buy the damn bricks or get them here, right? It's just an idea of optimization. Yeah, probably you're gonna build a smaller wall here and you can repurpose things, but you're wasting resources. And again, this is for the sake of optimal muscle building. So yeah, your body does increase growth hormone, but it doesn't work as we think it actually does. And this is something that if, again, for some people that want to build as much muscle as possible, going back to the example that we said before, hey, but I don't want to be as bigger as you. I don't want to grow as much as you. I understand that. But because you're going to be losing muscle as you age, your idea doesn't really make a lot of sense because, again, the same idea behind the bank. The bank is giving you probably a 6% interest. A 4% interest, but inflation is 6%. You're actually losing. The same is going to happen. So the best solution is just don't train fasted. Have a whey shake. Like optimally, take a whey shake before training. Okay, second best option, have the whey shake after training. I can agree with that. But if you want to optimize it, have it before or eat 4 hours before. Just the idea is having some protein in your system that your body is going to be able to use instead of your own muscles.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. Because I think, maybe a lot of our listeners do more endurance than strength, but I've said this for years. The people that do yoga need to meet and do more strength training. The strength training need to do more yoga. The endurance athlete needs to do some CrossFit type of HIIT training. And I think we all need to combine all our different modalities of exercise because exercise is that chronic cardio that's not ideal for longevity. Movement is, and agility and burst, to run up the stairs and be able to have that quickness. But I think endurance athletes, I keep being advocate for strength training and really getting stronger, especially as our hormones, especially female athletes, premenopausal, menopausal, even more important that we need to lift more weights. And I like to lift heavy, and I go by my genetics, my DNA fit report. I do best with, like 5 to 8 reps, sometimes 3, and do more strength and get stronger instead of spending more time. I know I have a friend like going to spin class, and then she's going for a hike, and then she's going running. And I'm like, did you do strength training? Yeah, I went to Orange Theory. I'm like, well, that's cardio and strength. Like, no, we need weights and or lift heavy things. You don't need weights.
Yeah, it's just create the adequate stimulus for a body. And it doesn't have to be there. A lot of promoters like Doug McGuff, with their body by science approach, where, like you can probably train just one exercise for each major body part with enough stimulus. And that's enough just to maintain.
Yeah.
And this is, again, depending on where you are in your current, where your current goals are, you can choose one or the other, but there's like a minimal approach to maintaining. And then there's something that you can, probably do a little bit more or less depending on where you are.
Yeah. I know I'm doing the BFR bands demo for Be Strong and do some videos and just trying that. It's like, okay, I'm getting stronger. What can I do? Different biohacks, so to speak, for improving my strength gains in less amount of time, but just example of different things that you can implement into your day that doesn't take, going to the gym, driving there, an hour workout. I mean, you can get so much done in less time with just even body weight exercises. So it's easy to do.
BFR and Katsu is an incredible way to train. And even if you don't have them, I don't know if you're familiar with the MyoRep style training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very much like if you're traveling or if you have a limited set of weights, either using BFR or using MyoRep style training, you can get an awesome workout in 10 minutes. And that's enough just to maintain, or you can even adjust it a little bit to get a different kind of growth. So
yeah, that's good. So I know we're out of time. I'll put everything in the show notes, your articles and links for the Ketogains coffee. I just have it written here. The Ketogains Coffee Pre-Workout before strength training is saying the strong coffee mixed with 25 grams of whey protein, 10 grams MCT oils for energy, some sodium or ideally element, and then anything else in there, 5 to 10 grams of rapid absorbable carbs.
totally.
For some people.
And one big idea that I've been having in the last few months with some clients and myself is carbs. The type of carbs, if you're going to have them in the shake, it can be either dextrose or glucose, or as well as maltodextrin. And I know there are some purists there that say no, because this is not, this is processed and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, here the purpose is optimization. But what I've recently been playing with, which is even a little bit better and more explosive, especially for my jiu-jitsu clients, is glycerin. Glycerin is another type of, no, glycerin. There's a small confusion. Glycine is an amino acid. You can also add it there, and it's going to help with a little bit of recovery. And I've actually added both, but the glycerin, if it makes I joke that it rhymes with, nitroglycerin, which is what, again, going back to example, race cars. Yeah. What do they use to, really increase, the top speed? Nitroglycerin. And what's the effect of glycerin on the body is that it's a fast absorbing carb, but it also increases glycogen replenishment more rapidly than glucose by itself, and also hydrates the cell. So you're putting more water in your muscles, very much like creatine, which increase, again, energy output.
So I was just going to ask about that creatine. Yeah. So go.
So it works perfectly. And especially with my clients that do jiu-jitsu and CrossFit that are having very intense training sessions, this is another game changer. Even if they're training at a big deficit because they have to make weight, this thing has been something incredible. And I have gone recently back to gym training because I very much built a gym here at home because of the pandemic. And I'm breaking again PRs using this mix.
I wonder if it'd be good to experiment with before a speed run workout. If you're doing some sprints, like Wednesday mornings, we go to the beach in Solana Beach here and do speed work. And then one day when it's, the days are longer, we'll go for a bike ride, do hill repeats and stuff. So maybe for the person doing more cardio workouts and then do intervals outside, if you love to work out outside as I do, but that's a good opportunity to experiment with that pre-workout drink.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, anything that relates to, like you said, sprints, where you have moments of high intensity and then probably, stay at a lower intensity, but constant, it's going to be very usable or a great experiment.
Yeah, because I know I cannot eat solid food a lot of times, especially if I go swim. I do masters at 11:45 a.m. most days a week, 4 days a week. That I can't go eat because I'll be regurgitating it in a swim workout. Or if I go running, biking, I can, eat a little more solid stuff. But I think it's a great opportunity to experiment with each person's own body and what they can, figure out how you can measure. Are you getting more performance gains if it's using your Garmin watch, your more power output on a bike, or faster speeds running, or strength training? Obviously you can see your numbers are improving that way. But, I think people need to see, is this working for me? And how do I test it on myself to see if there's any changes?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Good. So anything coming up in this year? Are you going to do any new events or speaking or focus areas, your research?
Well, we're keeping up with this. We were doing actually a study on fasting before the pandemic. Likely we're going to start going back to it with I also worked with Menno Henselmans. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a researcher from the Netherlands. So it's actually, I'm just you want to research or maybe have him on your podcast.
Yeah,
it's a great resource for all things strength training and body composition. And I've done a study with him 2 years ago regarding optimal protein intake, which was published on Nature. And we are doing this study on if you can gain as much muscle while doing certain types of fasting, and what would be the best amount of fasting as to gain the most muscle, right? Because some of the things we have been talking about here, now having them in a natural published study. So that's one thing that we're probably going to get back next year. And well, yeah, now that travel is supposedly going to be much easier, going to the States for Metabolic Health Summit.
Yeah, me too.
Paleo FX, some of my favorite events in the States. So well, probably we'll see you there.
Yeah, now I live in San Diego. I was in Seattle. That we can just take the train from Solana Beach here and go right to Santa Barbara and just be able to sit there and not sit in traffic. That LA traffic, I wouldn't drive in. A couple of months ago, I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But that is a great one, the Metabolic Health Summit. And then of course, Paleo FX, I'm going to just book my airfare, and that's in April. And then KetoCon, I'll be speaking at in July, but my focus, that's why I need to get more research on this area, is they want me to talk about the low carb athlete. And I want to talk about training, fueling training and performing tips for the low carb athlete, and trying to target the endurance athletes. Cause a lot of people aren't diving into that side of it, because more people at KetoCon are talking about, I'm just drawing blank of my two friends that are all about keto and carnivore for bodybuilding part, but not the other activities in sports. So yeah, so I think we need to talk about that more. And then females, we need to give a little different recommendations for the female, as we're not the same as men as we hear and know about.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, keep me in the loop on any research you guys are doing. And I'd love to share that in my presentations next year. Also, I'm going to the low carb cruise. There's a ton of top people there in May. So there's lots going on, as people hopefully won't cancel everything again, and we'll get back to almost normal.
Hopefully, because these 2 years have been very much, like a big parenthesis, in the sense that I cannot believe that it's already been 2 years.
I know, right? It is insane. Yeah. So hopefully. So thank you for your time today. And I'll put all the links in the show notes for the Ketogains research and the coffee and all sorts of things on fasted exercise, so you can read and be open-minded. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.